Segment of the show for today. The topic is current political and social situations on the continent of Africa, and we're talking to Dr. LMadu4. Now, Dr. LMadu4, I think you've already indicated that things are much better in Africa than they have been in a long time, and let's continue our conversation.
Yeah, like I was saying, these elections this year, have been watershed, in a lot of African countries, and also in Togo, they had their election this year, which was adjudged to be free and fair by the European Union and other international organizations. President Nyasimbe, got re-elected for another 5-year term. Next year, some important elections are coming on. Nigeria will be voting in April for president and senatorial and legislative seats. As you know, President Yaradua, died earlier this year, and Goodluck Jonathan, who was vice president, took over as president. And now Jonathan wants to run, for the next
president
as president come in April on his own. But he's been challenged, by some very powerful contenders. Former military president Babangida wants to run again. Former vice president under Obasanjo, Mr. Abubakar, wants to run. And the former spy chief of the country, General Guzo, wants to run under the PDP, People's Democratic Party platform. And then, of course, you have the former president, too, General Muhammad Buhari, who also wants to run. So it's going to be a very interesting elections, for the country next year. And hopes are and indications are that the election will be free and fair, given the tensions and things at stake. Also in Uganda, there will also be an important election next year in Uganda. President Museveni wants to run for re-election. He's been in power since 1985, and still he wants to continue. Yeah, a few years ago when he wanted to run, in fact, a lot of European countries wanted to break relations with Uganda because they thought it's time for him to go.
Since 85?
Yeah, he's been there since Milton Obote was overthrown. He's been there, since 1985 and has not given any indications of leaving office. So he wants to run again next year. But the person challenging him this time has a lot of credibility, so it's going to be interesting. Mr. Olara Otuno. He was former United Nations Under-Secretary for Children and also former ambassador to United Nations for Uganda. He's running under the UPC banner, which was a party of former President Obote. So those are two interesting elections coming up next year. In Burkina Faso, President Compaoré also wants to run for re-election. But he's been in power since 1987, and doesn't want to give up either, and has gained a reputation for having his opponents, killed. Yeah, and he came to power over the body of his best friend, Thomas Sankara. He was the person who organized the overthrow and assassination of Thomas Sankara in 1987. Sankara was his best friend since childhood, And
but it didn't seem to matter.
Exactly, it didn't seem to matter. Thank you. It didn't seem to matter when it came to that. He cold-bloodedly, assassinated Thomas Sankara. So he's going to be running for re-election again next year. And indications are that he will win. Those who are opposing him, won't get anywhere anyway. That's the belief in Burkina Faso and national circles.
It's best to just let him have the election. Well, now, how many years would he have if he were to? Is there
5 years?
Another 5-year term?
Yeah, constitutions normally have those time, but either they change it themselves or they just keep running. And whomever wants to run, you get arrested and detained, for some spurious excuses. Then after the elections, you get released, So that's what they do. Yeah, they have, like Museveni. His term is normally 5 years, but every 5 years he runs again, intimidates his opponents and moves on. Now in Central Africa, you have General Bozize, General Francois Bozize. Yeah, he wants to run for, re-election as president of Central African Republic. He's one of the few remaining military heads of state or dictators, as we call them, you know, in Africa. He overthrew the former, you know, president, you know, who was civilian elected and took over. So now he wants to run for re-election again. Then you have President Yayi Boni in Benin Republic, who's also running for re-election next year. Benin Republic is remarkable because it's one of the most stable and democratic countries in Africa, where elections are held and you know it's free and fair. So he holds that really in the West Africa region. Benin comes first.
It seems to me that all these individuals